Hello, relatives. Thank you for joining me on this wonderful Saturday morning. I know it's a little gloomy, at least it is where I am, but this is some of my favorite weather, so I'm pretty happy over here. Alright, so I want to get us started with our HIR Wellness Warms Cares lines. Our HIR Wellness Warms Cares lines are open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. Always feel free to give us a call if you ever feel that you need some support or someone to talk to. You know, just give us a call. We'll be there with you. Again, our HIR Wellness Warms Cares lines are open Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. All right. Let's get started here. So I've got my blank sheets of paper. And I'm going to start today with a pencil and an eraser. So I think today we're going to start with an orchid. I don't usually draw a lot of plants, but I've been enjoying drawing plants. So I'm going to take this little piece of paper here, and I'm going to start by drawing a little pot. So I am drawing a rectangle that's got some slanted sides here, and I'm just putting a top on it. And I want to make this very small because orchids go up very high, so I need a lot of space to do that with. After I've created this particular trapezoid thingy, I'm just going to draw a line towards the top of it to create the rim. Alright. Now next what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw a line that's slightly curved at the top, but then comes down relatively straight to the middle of the pot at the bottom. From there, up at the top here, I'm going to create a petal. I'm going to be creating a lot of these petals, and they're a lot like upside down teardrops. So when we look at just the shape, it's like a teardrop with a very flat bottom, right? I'm drawing that so that the tip is always going to be pointed towards the stem. And then I'm going to draw a wing to it. So like half a heart or another teardrop. And then I'm going to do one on the other side. And I'm going to repeat this 2 more times down on my stem. So I start with my first petal, which is like that flat bottom teardrop. And then I'm going to make 2 little tears to go next to it. I'm going to do one more. Alright, so those are my flowers. Now down here at the bottom, next I'm going to draw out some leaves. So for my first leaf, I'm going to start kind of next to my stem here. And I'm just going to make one line with a slight curve going out. And then from here, I'm going to do the opposite going in, trying to keep the leaf relatively narrow. Then I'm going to draw a second leaf. Again, going out with a slight curve. I'm going to erase that overlapping line so that this leaf is in the front. And there I've got 2 leaves. Now I'm going to go to the other side and do the same thing. So for this one, I am going to start my leaf a little further out. So I'm going to start up here. And then I'm going to bring that back down. and that's going to create my orchid. Now you can always feel free to add another leaf if you really want, you know, whatever it is that you'd like to more personalize this, but that is going to be my basic drawing. So from here, I'm going to grab one of my more narrow markers. Right, so I've got a permanent marker here. It's got a pretty narrow tip. And I'm going to start with my flowers. And I'm just going to outline them. I'm not going to touch my stem because I'm going to modify that after I'm done with my flowers here. Alright, now I'm going to do my leaves. Alright, and now I'm going to do the little pot for my flower. Okay, so the last thing I'm going to do here is I'm actually going to cap my marker for a second, and I'm going to take my eraser and I'm going to erase all of the lines here. Alright, now I'm going to take my marker and I'm going to draw a stem. So I did have a pencil line here, but sometimes when you outline these flowers, they can kind of distort, so the line doesn't always make sense afterwards. So I'm going to start not directly in the middle, but slightly to the side of my flower, because I'm going to make 2 lines to act as the stem, because stems on orchids are still quite thick. Alright, so I'm going to do the same thing down here. My purpose is to go from the top section down to the bottom section while still staying in the middle of the flower. And then once I get here, I kind of just choose a place in the pot, and I'll take my line, and that becomes the point to my flower. So that is going to be the base for my flower. Next thing I'm going to do is when I get up here, I'm going to grab a purple marker. So this one's a purple marker. You can't see it very well, but it's purple. Oh, I got a cat joining me. You can see his shadow. He is a shadow though, he's all black. So I'm going to go up to this petal here. And this is a type of Zentangle I don't do a lot, but I'm not actually going to fill in the whole space. What I'm going to do is I'm going to start towards the top here, right? So I'm not quite at the top, but I'm towards the top. I'm bringing you guys a little bit closer here. So I'm going to start towards the top here, and then I'm just going to zigzag out and then in towards the bottom. And that's going to create a roundish shape with the zigzag. And I'm going to do roughly the same thing on the petals, but instead of having a white space on either side of the zigzag, it's only going to be on one side. So starting towards the top, zigzagging out and then in on that petal there. And I'm going to do the same thing for the other one. Just like that. And I'm going to go in and I'm going to do that with the other flowers. So towards the top, zigzag out, and then back in and down. So start at the top here, zigzagging out, and then back in. Going down to the lower petal, start towards the top, out, then back in. And all this is really supposed to do is just add a little bit of color to those petals. Orchids tend to come in a variety of color. I've got a pink and yellow one here at my house. That's a little hard to recreate in a Zentangle. So next up, I am going to take a green marker. With this green marker, I'm going to start on my stem here. And I'm going to do small parallel lines. So going from one edge of the stem to the other, I'm just doing small parallel lines. I'll bring that in closer here. Right? Always feel in tune with your body when you're doing this. If you like doing each individual line nice and slow and deliberately, go right ahead. If you enjoy doing them all very quickly in rapid succession, because what we're trying to do here is just relax a little bit, calm down, come back to ourselves. So the motion is just as important as anything else we're doing here. How does it make you feel? Alright, now I've got my leaves. I was going to say petals. And I'm going to do the same parallel lines, but I'm going to be doing them at slightly different angles for each of the leaves, depending on how they're situated. So for this top one here that I've got, I'm just going to start at this angle. And I'm going to try and keep this angle as I go through, just so that they continue to stay roughly parallel instead of curving out. For the next leaf, I moved my paper a little bit. And now I'm going to do those lines in a slightly different direction because this leaf is going in a different direction. And while I'm doing this, I'm taking some nice deep breaths and being aware of myself, trying to relax my shoulders because I tend to tense those up. Relaxing my back. Alright, so for this last one, again, I'm going to turn my paper a little bit so I get a slightly different angle. You'll notice that my lines slow down as the petal or as the leaf gets larger. That's just because I don't necessarily feel as confident. So I try and go a little bit more slowly so I can get that straight line. Alright. So now I'm going to switch over to this side. I'll start with the top leaf. Alright, it's my last leaf here. If you guys are just joining us, don't worry. I know that we're in the middle of this one, but you feel free to take out a piece of paper, draw a circle or two. You guys can continue to do these patterns with us as we move along. We'll start a second image soon. Alright, so there we go. And that finishes up my green color. And now I have an orange color, so I'm going to use that for the pot. So I'm going to keep with these lines. I'm just feeling these lines today. And for this top rim, I'm going to be doing lines that are going from top to bottom. And then I'm going to turn my paper so it's a little bit easier for me to draw. And I'm going to be doing lines that go from the side to the side of the pot. So parallel to that top. Alright, so that finishes up that, and now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to divide up the background into square sections. So, take my ruler out here, I'm going to line up my paper. I'm just going to mark off 1-inch sections. If you don't have a ruler available to you, always feel free to take a sticky note or another piece of paper and just mark off, you know, whatever length you think is appropriate. Yeah. And you can use that to measure out. Alright, now I'm going to flip my paper and do the other side as well. We'll do 1-inch sections. So because my paper isn't perfect, I'm trying to decide if I want a 1/2-inch section at the bottom or not. I think so. Alright, so now I've got all of these little marks on the side, so I can take my ruler. You don't have to be as perfect about this, you can always freehand your lines if you want. But I like the comfort of the ruler, because it lets me know that I've done everything I can to make it nice and pretty. And I like symmetry. And I generally just like using rulers. I know that's not something everyone can say. Alright, so I'm just going through here, lining up my hashtag, or my marks, my hashes, and just pulling those lines across to give me some guide wires. I am doing this all in pencil. That way I can erase them when I'm finished with them. And always remember, if you're really not into doing these little patterns that we do, feel free to just take a piece of paper and run with a pattern through the entire piece of paper. I don't usually do patterns that are that complex, so sometimes that can get particularly boring, but feel free to Google patterns online. There are lots of really cool ones out there that you can fill a whole page up with, like that swirl one that I do. I have been known to fill huge pieces of paper just full of swirls. There's absolutely no need to be doing these little drawings if that's not what's making you happy and comfortable and just really helping you relax and focus. Alright, so I've got all of my lines here. Now I'm going to take out one of my larger markers. And it's just a black one, but you can choose whatever color you'd like. I chose to use black because I have a lot of subtle colors here, and I didn't want to overwhelm them by using anything too strong for a background color. Alright, so starting with one square, all I'm going to do here is I'm going to draw diagonal lines within this particular box. I'm going to skip one, go down the row, and do the same thing. Now I'm going to go to the row to the right, and I'm going to fill in the opposite squares with these diagonal lines, creating a checkerboard pattern. So once I encounter my plant, all I'm going to do is I'm just going to eyeball that first line here. I'm very careful because I know my marker bleeds a lot, so I'm trying to be very careful around the plant. And then I'll just go in from one edge, fill in those diagonal lines. If you ever feel like a pattern is just too much to get through from one edge to the other, always feel free to divide your section up. That can really help mentally to get through a section, because you might be enjoying this and then just feel really frustrated that it takes so long to get through a single box. So I like to divide my box up and then go in there and fill that in, because then it feels smaller, more manageable, and you can do that as many times as you need to. Alright, so we're getting pretty close to finishing this one up, and then we will start our second one. Okay, so that finishes up the main portion here. Now I'm just going to clean this up by erasing all of my pencil lines. Alright, so there is my wonderful finished orchid. Oops. Yep, I like how the black and white background kind of makes the orchid pop. Not a lot, but I like that it emphasizes the color. So I'm going to put you aside, and I'm going to grab another piece of paper. And for my second design here, I'm going to start with a pencil and an eraser. And we're going to be doing a rubber duck. Because I had that song from Sesame Street stuck in my head. Rubber ducky, you're the one. Alright, so I'm going to start by making a circle for the head in the upper left-hand quadrant of the paper. You can definitely hold off on this if you want to, because the body part can be pretty big in comparison. So what I'm going to be doing for the body is I'm going to be making a circle, or an oval. Right? And it doesn't have to be very exact, because we have to go in there and kind of sharpen up some things. But it's got a pretty flat bottom to start with. And then from there, I'm going to go to the back, and where the head is, below that, I'm going to work in an indentation so that our oval kind of becomes a lima bean. Right? And then I'm going to go to the tail section here, and I'm just going to bring out that indentation just a little bit to create the tail. And the tail comes up, and then it's going to come down. So our lima bean has a bit more of a duck shape. And from there, when I bring it down, I'm just going to round off this bottom corner. Keep this section relatively flat. It can be very rounded, it doesn't matter. But it's mostly just a point at which I can talk on. And then for this front, it's going to come in. It's pretty rounded. And then we're going to connect it to the head by doing a backwards curve. We're going to go back to the back of the head and connect it to the duck over here by doing the opposite curve. And now I'm just going to come in, define my duck head a little bit more. Make it look more like the head is very much a part of the duck shape. And that right there is going to be the base for our duck. So I'll just outline that a little bit more firmly on the back. This tends to be a little bit rounder. So I think I'm going to go back in and re-round that. But that generally is a duck shape. A rubber ducky shape, not a real duck. Be kind of terrifying if real ducks look like this. So for the mouth, I'm basically going to make half a Pringle. Alright? So I'm going to start with the curve that's going up. And when it reaches the tip, I'm going to round it off just a bit and then bring it back down, looking very much like half a Pringle from the side. And for the bottom part, I'm going to be doing another half Pringle at a slightly different angle. I'm always torn up about what angles I want this to look at for the bottom, because it looks so weird in my opinion. But I don't like it when I draw them closed. So, there are our duck lips. Haha. Now, I'm going to take my marker. I'm going to outline the whole thing. So, my duck lips are going to be separated from my actual rubber ducky. So they've got that line there to separate them. Then from there, just outlining this whole thing. Right? And I'll go back in for our duck mouth. And that is going to be our rubber ducky. So now I'm going to take my eraser. I'm just going to clean this up by erasing all those pencil lines. Alright. So I'm going to start, with my orange marker. I'm just going to choose a different size. So I'm going to start with my orange marker for my bill here. And I'm just going to start by making those small parallel lines again. Just going from one edge to the other. And these ones I am going to curve a bit so that they come out kind of straight at the beak. You don't have to curve them if you don't want to. I just chose to, so they're not truly parallel. I'm going to do the same for this bottom one. And then there are my duck lips. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw an eyeball. So I've got a smaller pen for this. And I'm just going to draw a circle here. It's going to look very creepy to start with, right? And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw kind of a moon shape, right? Now I'm going to fill in the larger half of the moon shape. And now, with the remaining section here, I'm going to draw a line towards the top. So what this does is it creates a shine mark for the eyeball, which is really cool. But because my pen is so tiny, there's not a lot of black on the other side to really support that. So I'm just going to go over and take away small slices of the white on the other side to create more of a black line there. To really let that shine mark do its work. Now I'm going to bring up the tail a little bit so that it's kind of flat at the bottom. And there I've got an eyeball with a shine mark. So I'm going to put away my black marker. And I'm going to take out a yellow marker. So I've only got one yellow marker that really shows up well. And I don't know why, because I have this marker in other sizes and types. But for some reason, this is the only one that really shows up well. The rest of them are just way too light. So for my design here, I am going to draw circles. So the general rule of thumb for circles on my end is I draw a circle, and I'm not going to let it fall off the side, so I'm not going to create half circles on the edge, and I don't want my circles to touch each other, especially not with this color, because it's not going to look very, they're going to blend together. They're naturally going to blend together because they're so light. So I definitely don't want them to touch if I'm using a yellow marker. I'm just going to go through for my whole rubber ducky and do this entire thing in small circles. Alright, I really like this color. It's showing up very nice. Alright, and there I have a rubber ducky. For the background here, I'm going to take a pink pen and a blue one. I'm going to be using light blue. Thank you. All right, so I'm actually going to start with the blue marker first so that I can create the water that the duck's going to sit on. So I'm going to go over to the side here. I'm just going to start in the corner. I'm going to be doing the swirl pattern. So for the swirl pattern, you just put your pen down. You're going to create a swirl, right? And the point for this is to create evenly spaced lines. So I try and make my lines, you know, equally length apart. So the width of the white is roughly equal all around. And I'm going to go up roughly towards the middle here. And I'm just going to make a big swirl. What I'm doing with this is I'm kind of establishing a wave. So all I'm doing here is just establishing a water line. And I'm being very careful to make sure that they're different heights for these, so that it looks more like water. Oh, sounds like my cats are playing in the background. Thank you. I do love this ducky, and I only did it because I was thinking about that song, the one from Sesame Street. Rubber ducky, you're the one. My mom had a printing of it in our bathroom. She had like, with I think it was Bert who sang it. It was adorable. All right, so up at the top here, I'm going to take my ruler and I'm going to continue doing more parallel lines. I was definitely in a parallel line mood when I planned for this one. Alright, so I do have a little ruler, which makes this pretty easy to work with, or easier to work with. Yeah, because I'm going to be doing them at a diagonal. So basically, I'm going to put down my ruler, right? And that is the diagonal line that I'm going to be working with for the top portion. So I'm just going to take my marker. I'm going to start, at the swirl and work my way up. And because I don't want that little lump there, I'm actually going to make my diagonal a little bit thicker here. Alright, so I guess I'm going with very thick diagonal lines here. So I'm going to start my ruler off, trying to match that diagonal. I'm going to draw one line. I'm going to scoot my ruler over just a touch, and then I'm going to draw a second line and fill that in. Kind of looks like a rainbow. Alright, so now that I'm touching my duck, I'm just going to be careful about how I'm placing my lines down, or my marker down, so that I don't touch on something that I could accidentally color pink. Because I'm not going to end up coloring the black pink, but I could color the yellow pink. So I'm just being careful to avoid that. And this is where having the ruler comes in handy, because you can see here that this section should be pink. So I'm just going in there, cleaning up those edges so they don't look too round. Alright, I think I'm going to put one more line here in the corner. So that finishes up my duck. Last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to, well, first I'll show you what this looks like finished, right? Woo. Yeah, I'm happy with the pink. This is very cute. Alright, so last thing I'm going to do is I'm going to flip these guys over. I'm going to find a pen. I'm going to sign them and I'm going to date them. Because it occurred to me that I'm not signing or dating a lot of these guys, which is very sad. Because I won't be able to look back in a year and remember what I was doing. So I'm going to do 7... I think it's the 15th, right? No, it's the 18th. Okay. 7, 18, 20. 7, 18, 20. All right. So thank you guys for joining us. Again, this has been the HIR Wellness Institute. My name is Mackenzie, and this is Zentangle. So again, thank you so much for joining us, and I will be back again next Saturday at 10 a.m. Have a wonderful week.